Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back, everybody. Somebody's talking to you. They've got important information, and you're probably not listening. Who is trying to get your attention? That would be your body. Important stuff that you're probably missing. We're going to talk about that today, and the body connection through intuition, the things that we miss. To get all of this and more, we're going to go to somebody who is an intuitive. She is an intuitive medium. She's also a therapist, marriage and counselor as well. She does a lot of stuff. Interesting background. And we're going to get some interesting insight today from Noelle Deane. Welcome back. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, Steve. How about you?
I'm good. And I'm intrigued about what we're going to talk about today. Because some people, right away when you talk about psychics, intuition, mediums, some people go down the woo-woo road and they're like, oh, I really don't know. Now we're going to talk about your body talking to you. Body talker. Interesting topic, but I'm a firm believer in your body is an amazing machine, knows everything, and is trying to tell you stuff. But if you don't listen, you're missing out. You could be getting sick because you weren't listening to your body, right?
Yeah. We were just talking about, taking time off and not actually relaxing. You might get sick after you were on vacation to kind of force yourself to slow down because you didn't. And your body was trying to tell you that. First, I want to give my disclaimer because we really are going to talk about some like medical stuff or even mental health stuff.
Sure.
And just want to be very clear. The information we're presenting on the podcast is educational in nature and provided only as general information, isn't medical, psychological advice, nor is it a substitute for seeking licensed healthcare services. And I feel very strongly about that with everything we're going to talk about, because if we're talking about connecting with your body using your intuition, I just want to be clear that there are things that you can change and alter in your behavior that can, let's say, bring your body back to balance. But a lot of times, like as I was certified and I let go of my certification because I wanted to be a rebel, but I've been trained in 2 different schools of medical intuition. And it's very clear that, yeah.
I had no idea. So,
but sorry, go ahead.
I knew we were going to talk about this, but I didn't know that you were a medical intuitive. So, can you actually, like, let's say we have a conversation. Could you potentially say to somebody, all right, you may want to check, your lower back. There's I'm getting an potential issue with that. Is that what we're talking about here?
That's part of it. I was actually hoping to maybe inspire people a bit to connect with themselves in this kind of way, but certainly you can get that information for other people. Now, in being a medical intuitive, you're basically using your intuition where you can, in your mind, scan somebody's body and then see where there's maybe like an imbalance or something, and then you hone in on that area. And there's lots of different ways to go about it. But you can, almost like you zoom in on a photo on your phone, you can use your intuition to zoom in on that area and see what you see. Now, I never remember anything about physiology, so I would ask somebody's higher self, let's say, if I was doing a reading like this on you, I would be likely communicating with your higher self, and I would ask your higher self if I could talk to him or her, and then get connected with them, and then ask them to show me what areas to look at. And I could maybe do a diagram of what I'm being shown that is pointing out an area that needs some help. I don't really resonate a lot with like physical health. I'm a therapist. I care about dynamics and emotional stuff more. So I think that's part of why I find it really kind of intimidating to do medical intuition readings too much, because you have to be really specific. And if I even remember what a stomach looks like, I feel like accomplished. So that part, I really love the idea to support people and serve people by helping them understand the emotional root cause of why they might be having a physical issue.
Is it safe
rather than the physical issue?
Is it safe to say that much of the stuff that we deal with in our bodies, the chronic illness, the challenges we have, all of that, it's really the majority of it's starting up here?
Look, some people believe that cancer, and I'm not trying to generalize about cancer, but that it's based from anger. When I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I saw a woman that I'd seen a few times who did Reiki and also got a lot of mediumship type information. And I remember her giving me that feedback that the
Wow.
tumor in my breast was related to anger at my father.
Wow.
So not trying to make a general statement, just
Sure.
that was my experience.
I don't doubt it for a second.
Yeah.
All of this, I believe that there's more going on here than we realize. And the things that we internalize, whether it's anger, sadness, stress, all of that gets into the cellular level. Each one of your cells, even the traumas you've dealt with years ago, even maybe as a kid, and it doesn't have to be traumatic, but they are called traumas, for a reason, because you're dealing with them. All that could be down to the cells and causing physical challenges.
I agree completely. Right now I'm doing a workshop, quantum entanglement and the mother wound through the Shift Network, I believe it is. And the woman who's leading it, Dr. Lottie, was talking, I just listened to it yesterday, was talking about basically inheriting a lot of physical issues. When your grandmother has the DNA that she has, I'm going to say it completely wrong, but it's basically implanting in her future children and the future children after that some of the epigenetics of trauma.
Wow.
They did a study she was describing with, I believe it was rats, and some rats were exposed to a certain smell, and then male rats, and then their sperm was implanted, babies were created. And like 3 generations later, it was still that those baby rats that had never been exposed, like had an aversion to that smell. Like things are passed down. And there's so many layers to how we can look at that, Steve. You could say, well, I had a contract in this life with the person who agreed to be my partner, that they were going to care for me. So I get a big illness because in the last life I cared for them, and I wanted to have that experience to rebalance the karma between us. There could be so many reasons why you get that, or also just to have compassion if you weren't somebody with a lot of compassion, and then you decide to have a big physical issue, or you're born with a disability, which from what I read in Journey of Souls by Dr. Michael Newton, the people who are born with serious physical issues have taken on some of the hardest lessons in life. That gave me a whole different kind of respect for people with serious physical issues and for their whole lives. Like I can't imagine what their life lesson is, but it was a lot. They took on a lot in doing that.
So there are reasons for all of this, and we might not even realize it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't doubt any of it. And interesting when you think about how call them traumas, whatever they are, how it's generationally passed down, an aversion to something, whatever it might be. Wow.
And you can also look at it like it's like the culture of poverty in some ways. This feels like a reach coming out of my mouth. But anyway, there are some families where they're like, this is just how it is. This is how we live. And if you're not the kind of person, like sort of like the rebel of the family that wants to go against the grain and create something different, you may just accept, well, this is how it is. In my family, we have pretty severe mental illness, or we are poor. That's just who we are. We don't physically exercise, and we overeat, or there's like an indoctrination, like the nature versus nurture thing. There's that too. There's learned behavior as some mental health behavior, not like actual body chemistry so much, but even just focusing on the behavior. Like growing up with somebody who's bipolar typically means that person has a very hard time sustaining things. And you might, even if you have like the perfect brain chemistry, might be somebody who has really trouble sustaining things, because in your mind, no, we don't do relationships for longer than 5 months. We don't do jobs for longer than 8 months. We don't live here longer than 2 years. So there's even more layers in that way of learned behavior that we're not quite conscious of. But
it's interesting what you're talking about. I'm piecing it together. There's a lot to process here today.
yeah,
But my mom had anxiety. And I didn't realize it when I was a kid, even growing up. Didn't, I know she was overprotective, but I didn't realize it until later in life, much, much, much later in life. And then when she passed, I found myself, every relationship I was in was somebody that had lots of anxiety. Mm-hmm. And I pieced it together. I'm like, why are they showing up? Why am I the magnet for this? Why am I the nurturer? What's going on here? And that's my assumption why that's going on. So like you say, these things that we live with kind of dictate our life moving forward. Talk to your body. Talk to me about that.
So this is all going to sound strange, but when I started doing...
It's not to me. I'm going to tell you right now.
I feel like we want to say on the woo meter of 0 to 10, this might be like a 12. Mm-hmm. But anyway, when I first started really connecting with body parts, I could see at times, like let's say somebody's liver, and I would see, so imagine the emojis that we use on our phone, mm-hmm. right? So little round people with little arms and legs, but their body is their face and their whole body is just that little circle.
Yep.
That was what I saw as, let's say, the energy or the essence of different body parts. They just look like that little emoji and they had personalities. Excuse me. As I was sitting thinking about what we're going to talk about today, I was remembering just one in particular. And I believe it was a person's liver, whatever processes food, like when you eat fatty foods. I think it was the liver. I was connecting with somebody who didn't have any awareness of liver issues. But in doing the body scan, I saw what looked like a shiny liver. And I was like, oh, wow, your liver looks like brand new. Because I made an assumption. And then as I sat with it longer, it was more like the liver was using a little mirror to signal me like, SOS, help me, help me. The person was eating a lot of fried foods at that time. And the liver basically said, look, I'm not telling you not to, but you got to give me some time in between to process it. And that was such a specific, non-shaming, hey, I want you to have the freedom to eat what you want, but this is what I need kind of thing. And that's just a beautiful, very specific message. Sorry, go ahead.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I was going to ask, did I ever tell you the wart story?
No. But you have to now.
Well, I think it's in line with what we're talking about. But a bunch of years ago, like 12 years ago, I was up in the attic. I had pulled downstairs and leads to the garage. And it was July 4th. I was getting a boogie board, going to go to the beach. And I slipped and I fell down the stairs. And I basically rode the stairs down. Like, blah, 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 blah. I got like road rash all over my body from the wood and everything. And my foot impacted on the cement floor of the garage. Didn't break anything, but the impact caused a wart. Never had a wart. Like a big one. Like uncomfortable in the shoe. What's going on? So I go to a podiatrist. I'm like, what can we do here? So he does whatever he does. I wait some time. Week goes by. Doesn't go away. Go back to him. I'm like, Doc, it's still here. Like, what's going on? Let me try this. Blah, blah, blah. A week goes by. Doesn't go away. I go back to him again. I'm like, nothing's working. This is really uncomfortable. I've never had one before. It's hard to walk. He goes, you need to will it to go away. I'm like, what? He's like, will it to go away. Just focus on it and tell it that you want it to go away and it's not welcome. And I'm like, what? I've been paying copays for this person? That's what I'm thinking? So the next day I do it. 2 days later, it went away. And I'm convinced that I connected with it through this and the wart went away. I know we're on the 14th out of the 10 scale. We're at a 14 right now on the woo-woo scale. But it worked. It worked. And I've done it before. I've actually connected with, stomach issues or whatever and just focus on it. I need you to heal. I need you to be better. Things like that. And it works for me. I don't know. I think there's something there that we can connect and communicate with our body or parts of.
I love that you shared that story. The idea of willing, and I've heard that kind of thing before. And back to like the layers of things, I'd also wonder if you can do that with every, let's say, physical ailment. Maybe you in particular, that's one of your superpowers, is that you can do that. When I had vertigo several months ago, man, I was begging for it to go away, and it just wouldn't. So it might be there are some things you can, some things you can't. I don't know. I felt like vertigo, I had put a lot of pressure on myself with some new projects, and then suddenly I could barely walk, like really barely walk, without feeling like I was going to fall. And so I was feeling very aware that I was being slowed down, because it would have just given me time to think and not do. And when I get anxious, I feel like I should be doing, and then I'm distracting myself. It's not productive. So and I've heard this kind of thing before about somebody doing that actually on their child as well. So we can't underestimate the power of our mind to be able to do all kinds of amazing things for us. And I think sometimes the most challenging thing is remembering to do it.
Yes.
Like remembering to, okay, wait, I have this new thing. What am I doing? Hello, body. I'm telling you now, I want you to heal. And I remember when I was being treated for cancer and getting chemotherapy, which is a very intimidating thing to take into your body, is what you know is poison. And I used to listen to a lot of guided meditations. And there was one in particular that would talk about tell your cells to heal yourself. And I would focus on that. I would focus on sending the energy to the chemotherapy bag before it started coming into me.
Wow.
I would see, this is the visual that came to me. So I'm sure you remember the Carol Burnett show.
Mm-hmm.
Classic.
Actually, can I be honest with you here? I watched it the other night.
Did you?
I was looking for old TV shows. I'm like, man, remember that? Let me click that on there. What's his name? Harvey Korman and Vicki
Tim
Lawrence.
Conway.
Yeah, Tim Conway. Yeah, just I like looking at old shows and how they're put together. I'm a media geek, so I was like, how did they do that back in the 70s? How was it? How did they make? I was even watching last night, Mannix. I don't remember that show. He was a private investigator.
Oh, that was not Andy Griffith, but
no. Mike Connors.
I don't know the name, but I love that you just watched that.
1967, that show was. And I'm like, look at how the quality, man. That's actually really good. But anyway, familiar with Carol Burnett show.
Perfect. So I think it's at the end of the show, they show Carol as a cartoon character.
Yes.
Like she's a custodian and she's got a big broom.
Mopping the floor.
So the visual that came to me when I was asking for a visual for the chemotherapy was seeing that visual, like that Carol Burnett with the broom or the mop and like sweeping out the bad and keeping the good, sweeping out the bad and keeping the good. And I would just kind of mantra that in my head when I was taking in the chemotherapy. So, and I believed that my mind would certainly help and certainly kept my morale up in some ways. And that's an also important part of all of this is our energy. If we keep our energy low because we're not feeling well or we feel like we're not doing well, that takes its own toll. And there are times I have a friend and we talked, she gets depression sometimes, like she fluctuates. And one time we talked to the depression. And what I gleaned from the energy of the depression that was with her was that she didn't balance her energy very well. She would kind of go, and then she wouldn't stop and actually rest. And she has a body that needs rest. So when she wouldn't give herself breaks, she would get depressed to the point where she couldn't actually really do much. She was somewhat functional, but she could barely go to work. She couldn't keep up other appointments. And what came of that, and that's part of what the reason would be to even ask questions about these things is, well, what can I do that's more supportive, that creates better balance more consciously? So that my body doesn't need me to get sick. So I'll actually lay down and rest kind of thing. So what she got out of that was that she needed to actually schedule breaks. Like I can be busy for 3 or 4 days in a row, but then I notice that this starts to come up. So that's when I need to schedule half a day or several hours of self-care time and I don't make plans. And that's like the ideal situation is that you actually learn something about what you need to take better care of yourself.
Because you listened.
You listened.
Listen, I was just thinking, with your vertigo, and you asked the vertigo to go, do you think that maybe your focus was on the vertigo and not what may have been causing it, whether it was stress, anxiety, whatever it was, and maybe that's why it didn't go away as fast as we think it should have, because you were focusing on one thing here, but not maybe the root cause? I don't know why that just dropped in my head.
I think you're just picking up on stuff, and you're right. I didn't focus on the root cause. You're right. And also, I think it was supposed to help me just sit with and plan maybe in my head or whatever it was, these things I was going to do instead of stress maniacally moving around. And that was really hard for me to do as well. I did a lot of distracting. I watched TV stuff, and I mean, I did what I could actually do, and a lot of stuff I couldn't do, but I could have made better use of my time. One of the things
Yeah, I get it. We were talking before. I went away for 3 days. It was to relax. And I had all these plans of reading books and doing a lot of stuff. I didn't do anything. I ate and looked at the beach. That's what I wanted to do. First thing in the morning, I'm out there. I'm like, yeah, I get up. No, I don't want to. I'm just going to stare. I'm good. It's like a monk on a hill. I'm hanging out here. Maybe creepy, but whatever. And when I got home, I had a cold. And, people say, well, you picked it up from the airplane. No, I think I got it from my friend who I was staying with. But it made me stop. The reason of the trip was to relax and reflect. And as soon as I got home, I was back into the grind. I think it was there to make me stop. So last weekend, I didn't do anything. I was literally laying in bed, watching TV. I never watch TV. I was watching different shows and things like that. I think there was a reason. It was to, whoa, wait a minute. You did this trip for a reason, and now you need to continue with that reason and not jump back into a crazy, schedule. And it was a refocus. And you know what's interesting? I just thought of this. I was driving here today, listening to music, and it sounded different. The words sounded different. It was clearer. I was deeper into the music. Things that songs I've heard all forever. I didn't recognize the way they were put together. And I was picking up on them as I was driving. I was like, wow, that sounds good. I'm going to listen to that one again. Weird. Maybe that was just my refocus, and there was a reason for me to get sick for a couple of days. I don't know.
So as you're talking about being sick, all I keep seeing in my head is the words slow down, slow down, slow down. And I love the thing about noticing something very, very different. I don't remember if I shared in our conversation, but maybe last week I'm on the walk I go on all the time. And there's this tree that's standing out to me that I'm like, where did this tree come from? I don't think it was recently, but for some reason,
wow,
my awareness was very different around that. So it seems like, maybe it's just a sign, you're paying attention on a deeper level.
Yes.
We've talked a lot about music, and you read the lyrics and you're like, oh my goodness, I had no idea it said all of this. It's way richer. It's way more relatable, especially in this chapter of my life. And so now I'm going to kind of sit here and wonder, like, gosh, I wonder what else you're going to notice. Maybe even when people talk to you, maybe you'll hear it a bit differently. It caught your attention, and that's one of the ways that we get communicated with, is we just notice something different. Or, gosh, I can't stop seeing, for some reason I'm getting like red butterflies. Like you just can't stop seeing it. Just whatever it is. That's a huge part of being more attuned to your intuition, is keeping your awareness open. Not like constantly looking for things, but always being kind of aware and receptive. I find that even when I go on a walk, I have a friend, we walk around this lake once in a while, and I can't help but notice the flowers and the lizards and all these little things that she's clearly not noticing at all, because she might actually be engaged in the conversation. I'm like, not that I'm so scattered, but I just can't help but to notice my environment more than I ever did before, because I've learned and trained myself. And maybe that's the difference of having years of experience doing this. Maybe the only difference is I've trained myself to pay attention. I've trained myself to not throw away information when I get it. I still have some self-doubt. I still get a little freaked out by things sometimes, but that's the name of the game, is just being open and going with it. And then you say things that kind of freak out your partner or your friends sometimes, that you're picking up on stuff, but you're like, hey, I couldn't make this up if I tried.
I let all that go years ago.
Good.
I don't, when I believe in something, if it's a sign or whatever, that's what I got. And that's what I choose to believe. And I need deep proof, but once I'm there, I don't care what anybody says. But it really it's realizing what's around us. We go through life rushing, and speaking of rushing, we're out of time. Of course. What's the best way to connect with you? How do we do that?
Please reach out if you have tried any of the stuff we've talked about and want to tell us how it went, or if you have ideas for things you'd like to hear more about, please do reach out. I am available at Connecting with Noelle. It's Noelle @gmail.com. My website is Connecting with Noelle. You could see the different services that I offer, classes, coaching, mediumship readings, and other things. And I'd love to hear from you. I really would.
Instant feedback, steve@gmail.com. Another way to reach out. Yeah, tell us your experiences. Yes. If this is inspiring you. Noelle, by the way, spelled Noelle. Just want to make sure we get that clear. Thank you so much for today.
Thanks, Steve.
Things that I thought about, you backed up about listening to your body, and it's talking to you, trying to get your attention many times.
Give it love and compassion. It's doing its best to serve you, and try to listen because it cares enough to share.
Good point. All right. We'll catch up soon. Okay.
Okay.
We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Can I touch this? Where does sand come from? Is this tree good for climbing? What happens if I mix these two things together? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Storing your guns securely is the best way to prevent family fire, including unintentional shootings. For more information on safe gun storage and ways to keep your family safe, visit endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org.
What do we keep in the attic? What's this thing called? Can I ride my bike backwards?
Like I said, kids are curious. It's up to us to keep them safe. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.